Hey guys, welcome back to Smashing here, and this is going to be our first Pokemon TCG video ever, and if it doesn't get any views, it'll also be the last one ever. But I hope it gets views, because I want to keep doing this, and I have sort of like a special guest, one of my friends, Paul, who also plays the game. Say hi, Paul.
Hi there.
And as you can probably see from the screen, we're going to be discussing theme decks in Pokemon, and why they're so bad. These some of the old ones, I think they look really cool, and just sort of like their main attackers at the bottom. But really, theme decks, I don't know how many theme decks you've gotten, Paul, but I've gotten quite a few, and they're always really bad.
Yeah, I think I've gotten two of both Greninjas and the Luxray, and I tore them both apart really fast.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. I mean, the Greninja one's moderately useful because you can use Greninja, but they're really bad.
Yeah, they didn't stay together very long.
I was thinking, well, they're sort of like a trap, because you look at them, and I know I did this. I tried to structure my personal deck off of the structure decks, so like 20 energies, 20 trainers, and 20 Pokemon. Given I was a bit smarter than that, I only ran like 12 energy and like 15 Pokemon. Then again, I was running like stage 1s, so that's like I was running Pikachu spam at that point when I first started the game. But it did bait me into running that style of deck, and I thought, well, that's not something you really want kids to learn if they're trying to get into the game competitively. Why would you want to give them a faulty way to build a deck?
Yeah, TCGO, I'd spend a good hour trying to make sure everything's 20-20-20 because of what I've learned from super cheesy videos on YouTube. And then I started actually playing it competitive at the league and stuff, and everyone was showing me off with garbage decks at school,
Here's an
water
example,
fighting.
Right, of a bad theme deck. Mewtwo Mayhem. So it's pretty bad, and I put the only 3 useful Pokemon on it, and I mean, it's evolution, so of course it's going to be bad, but your main attacker is your 2 copies of Mewtwo, which does 20 damage plus 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, which is great, because you can slap it on the bench, attach double colorless if they ever get too greedy. But you don't run double colorless, so I'm not sure what use this has, because it already is only useful as a tech against Espeon. But aside from that, you have your 4 Nidoran and only 2 Nidorino, so already 2 Nidorans are out the window. And only 1 Nidoking. So that's 3 Nidorans and a Nidorino that aren't even useful to you.
Just like those 2 Onix that nobody ever plays.
Yeah. We'll just start from the top, right? So Rumble, it's pretty bad. I guess you can lock your opponent's Pokemon active, but there's nothing to get something that they're not attacking with active, so there's no reason to use Rumble on the Nidoking, and Tail Swing does only 100 damage for 3 energy, which is awful. But I guess it has a 20 spread similar to the Coco promo, but at that point you're running a stage 2 that's really just Tapu Koko promo plus 100 damage. It's really not that good. It's not good at all. You're also weak to Psychic, which isn't that good either. But your Gas, so we have our 3 copies of Ghastly, which evolves into 2 copies of Haunter, which goes into 0 Gengar. That's useless. 2 copies of Coughing are useless. 2 copies of Drowsy are useless. 2 copies of Machop and 2 copies of Machoke with no Machamp. Those are useless. 2 copies of Diglett and 1 copy of Dugtrio. So this is the other attacker you'll be using in this deck. Slash for 40 for double colorless, it's not bad. I mean, you're not going to use it. But Earthquake for 3 fighting energy does 130 damage, which isn't bad, except it does 20 to everything. So by the time if you can actually get it on decent sweep with Earthquake, you might knock out your own Ghastly, because Ghastly only has 40 HP. So if you ever bench a Ghastly, and so does a Nidoran, and so does Diglett. If you ever bench any of those Pokemon and they can fire off 2 Earthquakes, well, looks like you're done. Because you're losing prizes just from attacking, and you only have 90 HP.
Yeah, you'll get benched before you have anything left.
Yeah, you'll bench yourself, which I've never heard of that. But 2 Onix and 2 Sandshrew, those are also bad. I mean, no reason to use them. And 1 Hitmonchan, which can do 30 for 1 energy, so it's actually pretty good for a theme deck. Because you can like 2 shots them evolving Pokemon. Since they don't have a good search, they may not be able to evolve. That's awful. This is simply bad. And a kid could pay $13 for this deck when it's really bad, and they're not going to win anything with it. And even if you look at, like, there's 18 energy in this deck, which is better than 20, but your only search cards are Pokeball and Great Ball, and and one Fan Club, and your only draw card is your 2 copies of Tier now. So you're not pulling anything from the deck. You're in top deck mode, and if anyone's been delinquented to 0, you know top deck mode is not anything good. But this is just a bad theme deck, right, Paul? And the Pokemon Company has made better decks. They're not theme decks, but we have the Legendary Battle deck. This is the Lugia one, which actually has a theme and an end goal to it. So really what it is, you're using your Lugias, and every time you draw into one of your 3 double Carlos, you just attach it to Lugia, so you can sweep at the end of the game. And you use Dimension Valley, your 2 copies, with the goal work, so that you can maybe fire off 2 or 3 Rex, because you have 130 HP, and you can get it kind of fast. It's only 2 Psychic Energies because of Dimension Valley. So your whole thing is like Stadium. It's like you put a Stadium down, then you discard it, and Dimension Valley helps goal work. So if you're going to be attacking with goal work, you can use Dimension Valley, so it's Psychic, and then you're on a roll. You also have some decent search with Winona, and you have draw supporters and search supporters. Because if you look at the second column, it's supporters except for the 2 stadiums at the end. So you're in a pretty good spot. And if they're an EX deck that you're playing in, some theme deck format, unless you're playing it's like one of Battle Arena decks, I'm not sure why it would be, but say it is. You have Sigilif, and you have Mr. Mime in case there's like bench damage coming. It's not a bad deck. You can actually do stuff. You also have your 2 Blitzies, so that you can tank even more hits with the Lugia. And I mean, Paul, if you look at this is something you could see you or your brothers probably buying and playing and actually not losing on turn 2 with, right?
Yeah, we've used the Evil Tool deck for a really long time on TCGO, so we're all really used to the whole stack energy tactic.
And the Spurshire City Gym brings you up to 190 HP, and Blitzy on a coin flip can heal 30 from your Lugia every turn, making it so once you do start sweeping with Lugia, it goes for that sweep and keep going and going and going. You also have some consistency cards like Versus Seeker, Random Receiver, Pokemon Communication, I guess, and Ultra Ball. So you're a more consistent deck, right? But you're still not that strong attacking. But that's just one step up. The third step up, and the only decent decks that Pokemon has ever printed, is the Battle Arena decks, and I'm choosing Rayquaza because I love dragons. But it actually has an end goal in mind, which is get 2 Rayquazas, use the Stadium, which I forgot to put in here, and it's Skyro Bridge, lets you retreat between your 2 Rayquazas, so you use Dragon Burst, discard all the energy, use your 2 Electrics, and then you can fire off more Dragon Burst, so theoretically you can hit for 180 every turn by attaching a Lightning, 2 Dynamotors, and then retreat from your Rayquaza in the active that has only a fire left on it, and then fire off a Dragon Burst. And that's what you do every single turn. I'm not sure, I mean, the Zekrom's not bad, the Dene is not bad, nor is the Raichu, but I mean, the Raichu I guess makes sense because you have to fill up your bench with your Eels. I'm not sure what the 2 Victinis are there for. I mean, there's a V-Create one, which involves you filling up your bench, and there's the Fliptini. So V-Create kind of makes sense, and the 2 Zapdos are just bad. But the deck for the most part, the 2 Battle Compressors let you put your supporters in discard, let you put your Lightning. It works. It gets its combos off, right? And you can see how this is a clear step up from Mewtwo Mayhem.
Yeah, this compared to the other team decks that you can buy, such as the starters, are significantly better. It's better to spend $40 on this, or 20, or whatever its price.
It's $30.
$30 than
you get
spend
2 decks,
13.
so it's a lot better.
And all the cards from both decks are salvageable. The VS Seekers, the EXs, everything could be used.
Yeah, and they're also just pretty good decks. I mean, this is one of my favorite decks. It may not be great, but Rayquaza Eels is really fun. But that's the last good theme deck that Pokemon's printed that we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about 2 mediocre ones. So if we go to Sun and Moon, it's really sad. This is one of the best theme decks that we have. If you enter a theme deck tournament, you're really going to see a lot of this, and that's because it has 1 search card. It has Shiinotic, and theme decks are so bad that this 1 Shiinotic that is in the deck actually wins you games because it lets you find your Pokemon in your stage 2s. So really what this deck does is try and get Decidueyes out as much as possible because every theme deck is so slow. You're comparatively fast. So you just spam Brave Bird on everything, and not many theme deck cards can take 128 damage. And if they can, you can finish them off with other things. Even the Kangaskhan isn't that bad. You do run that sick 20 grass energy. But
if you somehow aren't getting energy from this deck, then you're doing something wrong.
yeah, you are, unless you got like milled out of all your energy somehow. I'm not sure what we're doing at that point, but this deck is actually considered good for theme deck tournaments, mostly in PTC-GO. But this one, every time I try and just get some free tokens or whatnot on PTC-GO, I run into this theme deck, Hidden Moon. It's Psychic and Fire, but you shouldn't use any of the fire. And similarly, you have a really bulky Pokemon that should be able to tank a couple hits that can deal a lot of damage with Shatter Shot and Wings of the Moon. So that's really what wins you the theme deck tournaments, is getting one unstoppable Pokemon and just sweeping through their entire team. Or not their entire team, their entire deck. And what makes this better than, say, the Solgaleo one is because it has this Beware. You evolve it, you draw 3 cards. There are so few ways to draw cards in theme deck tournaments that this comparatively is broken. Drawing 3 cards in the middle of your turn is so good that it actually borderline makes this deck usable. Also, you still have your 20 energies. So, in your 1 stadium, which I guess is cool. But maybe
Shatter Shot, which is a very popular Mewtwo. And dishes out damage really fast, just like Yveltal.
I mean, it was until Garbodor came out, but it was popular, then Garb happened. But if you look at this, this is considered good, and anyone who knows anything about this game should know that this deck is awful. And if you don't know anything about this game, then, by the way, this deck is awful. So I thought, well, instead of trying to bait kids into buying these awful decks, why don't we just give them good decks? Make it so, like, say, I know, Paul, there's a time where you had lost your deck. You could just go to the local card shop the day they had League, buy a deck off the shelf, and go play with it and have fun. And that's the idea behind this video. I'm going to present you 15 possible theme decks that would be better than any of the ones we have now. Probably even better than the Battle Arena decks for most parts. There are some meme decks here. Especially in the Guardians Rising segment. Actually, they're all meme decks in Guardians Rising segment. But, so that you can go to your local card shop, buy one off the shelf, drop $15, and then have a playable deck. So we're going to start out with a deck that a lot of you probably know really well. That's Passimian Mew. Since you don't have to worry about Skyfield or anything in this deck, in this version of the deck. Also, Paul, calm down with your mic. Since you don't have to worry about Skyfield in this build, because you're not benching Shamans or Lele's, you have so much space. So it's the Pokemon lineup is just 4 Passimian, 4 Mew, 2 Oranguru, and you have 3 Sycamores, 3 Yens, 2 Lilies, and 2 Gakuis. That's a fair amount of supporters, but then you look at the item count. There's 4 Nest Balls, 4 Ultra Balls, 4 Trainer's Mail, 4 Catchers, 4 Puzzles, 3 Buddy Buddy Rescues, and 2 Level Balls. So you're getting everything you want every single turn that you want it. And this deck is easy to play. And you just write on the back of the box, hey, kids, don't discard your double colorless energy. And then that's it.
Nice big bold letters.
Yeah, big bold letters. Don't discard DCE. And from there, like, you put the 2 Floatstones on your Rangaroos, and maybe like 1 on Passimian, and then you just have your Mews, and you just hit stuff. You hit into stuff, and you hit for 100, 110 with a Fury Belt with Passimian, and you hit for 140 with Mew, with the Fighting Fury Belt, of course. And that's pretty good numbers to be hitting on turn 1, especially with a theme deck. Considering this isn't even a theme deck, it's just a pretty decent deck that a lot of people have played. And I don't know, Paul, just from looking at this one, if you forgot your deck, would you buy this off the shelf if, like, with the Sun and Moon theme decks? Would you go and buy this off the shelf and feel like, you know, I can play a deck and not lose on turn 2?
I mean, I usually learn to turn 2, so I mean, but if it was more reliable, then probably. Like, if it was something like this and over a Greninja deck, then absolutely.
Oh yeah, you go turn 1, turn 1 bubble, turn 2 lose the game.
Sounds about right.
You play Greninja, and that's what happens when you play Greninja. Unless you're one of those 5 people who can play Greninja, and you always get turn 2 water duplicates. But if you're not, and you get turn 2 bubble and to lose the game, then, like me, then you're doing a little rough there. speaking of water decks, we have Golduck Starmie, which given not all of these cards are from the Sun and Moon set, but the main card is, and I think that's really what we're going for, is for your main card to be from the set that it's promoting. And this deck is also really consistent. It's 4 Psyduck, 4 Golduck, 2 Staryu, 2 Starmie, and then a 2/2 Auxiliary line. So you're drawing cards, and you put it after Space Beacon. You're basically losing a card every single turn, plus the cards you're playing to maintain your Golducks every turn. So you have Auxiliary to replenish your hand, but you have a lot of ways to get your attackers out into the field and screen your stage 1s. But it really teaches the fundamentals of the game. If you're a new player, I know probably be good for a lot of younger players, maybe your youngest brother. It teaches you the order of how you need to do things, and you're also hitting 120 every single turn for 1 energy. Given you're probably not one-shotting any big DXs, but you're two-shotting literally everything in the format.
Lysander to take out shamans is also kind of important.
Yeah. And deck does play 2 Lysanders, and maybe you saw with the last deck, every deck comes with 2 Versus Seekers, and I think that's something Pokemon needed to be doing.
Lower the price of some of the most key cards in the game.
Yeah. But this deck's just consistent. You're never going to have a kid struggling to get his Pokemon that he wants. And really, that's when I played theme decks when I was younger, that's what I remember being the biggest problem. Was I'd be playing, and I really want my Electivire, and then I'd go 4 turns without an Electivire and then lose the game. That's not fun for any kid, and that's because there wasn't any good search. And I'd look through the deck and be like, okay, why am I playing Tynamo Electric? And this isn't even like the Noble Victories one, this is the bad one. Why am I playing Tynamo Electric? There's no Electros, and I can't attack. So what's the point of it? Or I can attack, it's just bad. So I never really wanted to do that. To make those Pokemon, I just leave them in my hand the entire game, or discard them if I had that 1 copy of Ultra Ball. So this lets you find your Pokemon. It lets you attack every single turn. I think every kid likes attacking, and it's a fairly simple deck. What you want to do is get a Starmie set up, and you want as many Psyducks as you can, so that every turn you can evolve, attack, or just attack if you had already evolved. And you use Space Beacon, you discard 1 card from your hand, and you take 2 waters from your discard into your hand, and then you discard them with Double Jet, and then the next turn you do the same exact thing. And you just repeat that process over and over and over, hitting for 120 every turn, which, I don't know, as a kid, with most of the Pokemon and theme decks being fairly low HP outside of the monster stage 2s, I think that would be fun, hitting for 120 damage every single turn.
When we did the league challenge, I was placed with the juniors, and I don't think there's a single one of them who passed a turn without attacking.
Yeah, and they I mean, if you're going to a league challenge, you're probably a bit better than a lot of the kids who would actually buy starter decks now. But it still gets the point across. You're attacking every turn, and attacking is fun. I mean, I find firing off a Dragon Ascent is more fun than just a Double Jet, but you get this.
Yeah, something about Oko-ing Pokemon.
Yeah, something about 300 damage. And it being borderline playable. Charizard GX. But we still have a long way to go, because this doesn't even compare to some of the better decks we have coming up. So next we have 130 every turn with Dragonite Muck. It doesn't take as much maintenance, but it's a little harder to set up, but I did try and go for the most consistent build I can, and this highlights 2 Pokemon from the set, Alolan Muck and Dragonite. I know it would be better with Garbodor, but Muck's in the set, so. It's 4-2-4, fairly consistent, but I'm running 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Candy, 4 Puzzle, 4 Heavy Ball. You're not missing your Dragonites, really. 2 Misties, 3 Sycamore, 4 N. And a lot of decks rely on abilities, given the deck that I just showed before doesn't really rely on basic abilities, the Golduck deck. But if you're playing as your friend who just bought the Passimian deck, well, now he can't attack with Mew. So he has to attack with Passimian, given it's a 2-shot either way. But I see what I'm getting at. He has to only get Passimians because Mew is irrelevant. So the decks sort of interact. And I just think personally, I like Dragonite, and if I were younger, 8 or 9 years old, I would probably see this dragon wave attack and think 130 damage, cool. How do I do that every turn? Well, double dragon. And if you write on the back of the box, get a double dragon every turn, discard in every turn. And when you get special charge, put 2 back in, and then try and find a double dragon energy every single turn. If you just tell a kid to do that on the back of the box, then I think it's fairly simple. And it's not like they're going to have problems. They can just read the cards, and then just by reading cards, they're going to start drawing through their deck. The only problem might be kids might try to giant tail every turn. But aside from that, I would find this deck fun to play personally, and I think this is just a better direction that we could have gone in rather than the 3 starters, because if your best Pokemon is hitting 120 every single turn, but has to damage himself to do so, I just don't see how that's good, and he has to keep the energy on him. What makes this deck good is that you can sort of say, oh, my friend's trying to 2-shot me. No. I'm going to max potion off all the damage. Like if you're playing against your friend who's playing the Golduck deck and he just hits you for 120, well, you just knocked out his Golduck every single turn. You're just knocking out Golducks. But every so often you can say, no. I'm going to max potion off that damage. And now you have to 3-shot my Dragonite. And I just think that would be more fun than the starter decks that we got, especially the ones in Sun and Moon, which are god-awful. I'm not as bad as Mewtwo Mayhem, but now we have a meme deck, which I would buy this, and it's gimmicky. A lot of the theme decks are gimmicky, and so is this one. The Golduck one was fairly gimmicky. It just, you did this one combo every single turn, but it was a combo that worked, and if you just tell kids to do it, they will do it. This one uses Sharpedo, which does more damage for each retreat cost, so you use the Doug Trios to increase the retreat cost, and I sort of went full gimmick with Rough Skin, because Rough Skin has 3 damage counters, so 4 Bursting Balloon, so that they take 9 if they hit you, and if they're an EX, then they'll take, I think, 150, because I think they take 6 from hitting into you with Dangerous Energy. So every time they attack into you, they're an EX, they're taking 150 damage. If you have Bursting Balloon, Rough Skin, Dangerous Energy, yeah, and a lot sets up for 2 shots, or just 1 shot even, because if they don't attack a Sharpedo, then you're just getting a free 2-shot, which is the equivalent of 1 shot. Or they can just Lysander your Doug Trios, which only have 100 HP. But still, the deck does things, and as you see, like the list on screen, there's a lot of draw. Like there's 4 Sycamore, 4 N, and there's also 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Evo Soda, and 3 Nest Ball. So you're not missing your Carvanas, and you should be able to evolve into a Doug Trio or a Sharpedo every single turn. You also have your 2 Versa Seekers and a Floatstone, in case you need to put up a Doug Trio. I think the deck's fairly consistent and self-explanatory. Evolve into your Doug Trios. Your Doug Trios make your Sharpedo do more damage, and try and hit into your opponent's Pokemon that have more retreat costs, that are a little bit chunkier. It's a simple concept, but I think could be a lot of fun. And the last deck, which is slightly more of a meme deck, is Magma's Gigalith. And I thought of this in the car ride, and I was pretty proud of myself. So Gigalith's attack is 50 damage times the amount of fighting energy you can discard from your field every single turn. Well, you're going to be discarding 1 off of Gigalith. And so I'm like, well, that's 50. How do you get more energy? So I'm thinking Team Magma's Camera Up, because this is in February, so rotation's not even a thought for anyone yet. So each Camera Up you get on the field, that's energy. That's 3 energy. So that's 200 damage already on your chunky stage 2. Well, I'm thinking further than that, because I added the 4 Team Magma double energy. So what that does is you can attach it only to Magma Pokemon, and if you attach this, you're not getting rid of energy from Gigalith. You attach it to a Magma Pokemon, it only lasts for a turn. At the end of the turn, it's discarded, and it can only be attached to Magma Pokemon. That's double fighting energy. So you discard that, that's 100, and then that's 250 damage from all your Camera Ups. And I tried to make this as consistent as possible with the 4 Scorched Earth, the 4 Ultra, 4 Heavy, 4 Rare Candy, 2 Nest Ball. I tried to make it so you could find everything you needed every single turn. And I think this, like, if I were a kid, again, I think this would be fun. That's what the goal of most of these decks are, to be in some way fun for the kid, or for a kid playing, or for someone who's our age, or just forgot their deck, they could pick this up and then at least not get bodied or put up a fight if they went to their card shop, or just starting out in the game and know what they're doing, like know how to play the game but don't have any cards yet. Well, they can buy one of these as a starting point. And there's going to be one deck in here that's particularly competitive. But they don't all have to be super duper great. They just have to be good enough where you can get into the game with this deck and then play and have fun with it while not getting bodied by anyone who knows the game. So this is the last Sun and Moon deck. And Paul, I don't know if you saw Foreshadow earlier, which was the best one out of 3 Sun and Moon theme decks. I think all of these were soundly better than the Sun and Moon ones that they had.
Yeah, the Sun ones right now are just kind of garbage. I wouldn't advise picking one of those up unless you're absolutely desperate for one of the cards for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really good. It's like Shinotic's the only good thing, but everyone's like, oh yeah, Shinotic's really good. But it wasn't that. I mean, it's good, it's just there's no reason to play it, really.
It's nice to have, but you won't use it often.
Yeah, plus, well, you can use it. You'll just be like, well, why do I need it? Same thing as Lorantis. People thought that was going to be good, which I thought it was going to be good too. I wanted it to be good, but it just wasn't. Not enough damage. But this, like, let's say like, you buy more product than I do. In general, you buy more packs. I buy mostly singles. But
Yep.
I think like if you wanted to run a deck with any of these in it, you have enough of the main attacker or enough of the support Pokemon. So if you want to run Camera Up Flareon EX, because that's a fun deck, you could just buy this deck and then have all the Camera Ups and all the Numels you'd ever want.
Yeah, like if these were one of the options, I'd rather buy one of these instead of buying packs.
Yeah,
because this has important cards that everyone needs.
4 Ultra, 4 Heavy, 4 Candy, 2 Seekers. I mean, you buy 2 of these, well, you're going to have like 8 Ultra Balls, but you're going to have 4 Seekers. So if you buy like the Basimian one, you're going to have 4 Trainer's Mail, and it's just really going to combo well into each other to being able to make a sufficient deck. And you won't even, like, even if you're not wanting to play one of these decks per se, buying 2 of them will give you literally everything you need to be able to make like all the core cards you need to make a consistent deck. So moving on to the Guardians Rising cards, we start with the obvious, the monster, Trevenant Garbodor, which given I would not want this at a card shop because that means literally everyone would be able to play Trevenant Garbodor, which is a toxic deck.
I mean,
there's no way around it. You don't want everyone playing Trevenant Garbodor, but it's sort of gimmicky, and I think there are a lot of kids who latch onto it. Especially the kids who don't have any friends like me. I'd be like, well, if my opponent's not playing cards, that means they must be holding them, so I can get them with Poltergeist. But if they're not holding cards, that means they played them, so I can hit them with Trash Avalanche. And if neither is happening, I can just spread a whole bunch of damage with Silent Fear and make it so they have to play stuff. And then all the while, I can make it so they can't use their abilities to draw with my Garbotoxin Garbodor, mwahaha. And I tried to build this deck simple and consistent without Lele, which it's Guardians Rising, so everything's run with Lele, and most Garbodor variants need a lot of Leles to be able to be good. Like Tor Reklev in North American International Championships, he ran 4 Tapu Leles, and this is running 0, so this is going to be significantly worse. But there's no text in this deck, so you can run things like Evo Soda and Nest Ball. And you don't have to run all the different cards that you normally need to run because this is more straightforward, because it needs to be easier to understand, but it needs to be good enough where you can perform with it and just not lose. You could maybe beat some of your friends running some different decks. I know this could possibly be Lapras, Patch City, because that's fairly popular among the younger crowd. And you could beat that with Trevenant, and you could beat things like Mewtwo or you could beat things like Mewtwo or Espeon with Garbodor. So I think this would be a fun deck to play, and it'd be a good deck to pick up. I think it'd be worth $15.
Yeah, it beats out a lot of the previous metas, such as Greninja Break, which
because
was
Trevenant
easily played by a lot of little kids.
Yeah.
Places like Tabletop Arena.
Yeah.
You'd walk in and everyone would be using Greninja Break, and there'd be that one kid with Trevenant, and he'd go on crazy win streaks because of it.
I thought that was XY Trevenant, but moving on, we can talk about that later. There's this deck, which is for the people who like combos and don't like friends. Ghostapod Vileplume. So it's the 4 Wimpod, 4 Glycopod. We use Resolute Claws, 80 damage, plus 70 if they're a GX or an EX. So you can 2-shot a lot of EXs and GX, and if you can put your and you're only running 2 choice band, but if you can hit it on there, then you can be hitting 180. So similar to Drop a GX, you hit 150, but with the choice band, you hit 180. And that's a really good number to hit. You can KO things like the aforementioned Drompa GX. But in general, I mean, it's a combo-oriented deck, but it's also a lock deck, and I don't think Pokemon really doesn't like to tell people about lock. They're like, guys, lock doesn't actually exist, as they continue to print a new item lock or some type of ability or item lock card every other set.
They over-exaggerate a lot of the cards that end up being really garbage, but they leave the good cards for us to determine.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're also banning Forest of Giant Plants simply because of Vileplume Decidueye, so that you couldn't win on the first turn of the game. So they clearly don't like things like this. They're probably watching Trevenant for ban and expanded. They don't like it when you can't play the game, which given it's a kid-based game. So if you're not allowing people to play the game, then it's not fun. But I think this isn't as oppressive because you're attacking with the Glycopod, not Decidueye. So you're not really applying that much pressure. And a lot of these stage 2 decks I'm showing could take 2 hits from it, or not. They actually couldn't, because like things like Lunala can't take 2 hits from a Glycopod. But it's a 2-hit KO for a lot of things. A lot of stage 1s and stage 2s need 2 hits, but given this Glycopod also has 160 HP. With its armor attack, and it would actually, I guess, a Glycopod could survive 2 Glycopod attacks, because they only do 100 damage, because armor makes so you take 30 less damage. So I just think this is a really defensive deck, and I think kids or anyone really, you need to be able to play against defensive decks, and I think having one friend who plays it really makes everyone play better. Also, I tried to make this, since I don't have to tech anything in, it's not a stage 2 deck like Decidueye. There's a lot of space in here, really, because there's 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Trainers now, 4 Level Ball, and 4 Acro Bikes, so you're not really missing anything, ever. You should be hitting your Glycopod, you should be hitting your Vileplumes before you even drop Vileplume. You should have multiple Glycopods out. You just need to find your 4 Forest of Giant Plants, and that's all you really need. And there's 3 Sycamore, 3 Lysanders in here.
Lysander's going to come in handy more than people think. I know people who have skipped it out because they don't ever use it, but then they're going to need it when cards like Shaman.
Yeah.
Or
remember, this is
coming.
Sandslash. Remember
Sandslash.
Yeah, the draw 1 card. Also remember, this is Primal Clash 2 Guardians Rising set. This is not thinking about rotation yet, and playing with the cards from Primal Clash 2 Guardians Rising. So that's why you'll see the Vileplume. The next deck is Oricorio Mill. Partial credit to Omnipoke for this one. Actually, most credit to Omnipoke for this one. So this deck is another defensive deck, where turn 1 you can Passionate Dance for a whole bunch of Oricorios for 1 fire, but you're really looking for those burning energies so that you can Kindle every turn. And Kindle discards an energy from this Pokemon, from Oricorio, and that makes so you discard one of your opponent's energy, combo that with hammers, and then you're on a roll because you're trying to discard all their energy. And since they need to knock out basically 6 Oricorios, or I guess 4 Oricorios, 2 Bunnelbees usually, really once they run out of energy, you start milling away their deck with Bunnelby, and that's really what it is. You sit there until they run out of resources, and then you can just Bunnelby them down to losing the game, because you're not going to be killing anything with Oricorio. Except for
Bunnelby is one of those great end game cards.
Yeah.
When I had it in the Groudon deck, he saved me a few times against you.
Yeah. So I went too aggressive and then just got burrowed, or when I was playing Giratina Hammers. I guess the hammers didn't really kill you, but it made it so that if you have to play aggressively, try and get around Chaos Wheel, you could do that, or get around my ability Renegade Pulse. You could do that by playing aggressively and then Rototiller everything you missed back in. So it's really...
That Barrage also is a really useful ability to have on a card like Bunnelby. Adding 2 cards back into the deck, or getting rid of 2 from your enemy are both really useful.
Yeah, they're both 2 useful attacks, and really it makes really, this deck would make you get better at the game defensively, knowing when would be a good turn to put cards back into the deck, and when, like, what cards need to go back into the deck, and also when your opponent's getting low, at what point do you just ditch the Ikorio and then just start slamming away on the deck and trying to get it really low. This deck, I think, I personally would play this deck. It's a meme deck, but it's great. But you can. It's just an energy denial deck where your attack discards energy and your items discard energy, and your opponent will have to play more cards to get more energy, and then you just borrow them out. And it teaches the fundamentals of playing a mill deck, which is not a deck a lot of people play, but if you choose to play it, then
there'll be times where you'll end up very successful.
Yeah, I mean, mill decks have been good in the past. Look at Whale Lord. But I think that this is, even in the perspective of a fourth grader, it's a really long grind to discarding every card in your opponent's deck. But once you get that long grind to discard everything they have, it feels so good. Once you borrow off that last card, then they pick up their last card and they have nothing in hand, and you just know that you're going to win the next turn. It feels so good, and I think that kids would gravitate towards it. And with the amount of structure decks that are in this list, you could pick two and then create vastly different play styles that people can play. And as you can see, this includes the main attacker, or Ikorio is a new card from Guardians Rising. Bumblebee isn't. He's from Primal Clash. But you have a lot of new cards from Guardians Rising, such as Energy Lotto. And I mean, there actually in this deck there isn't a lot. It's just Energy Lotto. But it's a mill style deck. It's kind of it's going to be the same cards, and there's not much that can come out that would make you that you would really need for a mill deck. Really, the only thing that you're running Energy Lotto for is getting your burning energies so that you can kindle and then keep your energy and then sustain every single turn. Just keep setting up Orcorios on the bench, or moreover, when Orcorios get killed, you can replenish them by not having to attach every single turn to that one Orcorio. So moving on, we have one of my favorite meme decks, Excadrill Delmise, which I guess sort of is a serious deck, but I'm not sure you can take it seriously. And just so I could shove in as many cards from Guardians Rising as I could, there's Rayquaza in here, so more what I was thinking is you attach double colorless to Rayquaza, and then you go Turbo Storm, and you Turbo Storm two metals, or metal double colorless onto Excadrill, and I'm using Shield Energy, so you can try to survive a hit every so often, so you can get off 4 attacks with Excadrill. But Delmise, a Steelworker attack, adds 10 more damage, but because of Mega Barrage, it'll add 20 more damage for every Delmise on the bench, and that's really where this deck is actually Guardians Rising, is because the Rayquaza powers up your Excadrills, because that's one of the worst parts about the deck, is not being able to power up your Excadrills. And then Delmise powers up makes your Excadrills do more damage, makes them beefier, plus the Choice Band. So if you have 4 Delmise on the bench, you are adding 80 damage. And if you have a Choice Band, that's adding 60 plus Mach Claw. So let's do the math here. 90 plus 30 is 120. So you're hitting 240 damage on a non-EX, giving up 1 prize. So you can be knocking out things like the Decidueye and Gardevoir. Well, you're already knocking out Gardevoir. You're really killing 2 Gardevoirs at this point. And you can also hit in those pesky lightning types with your Mach Claw, because not affected by resistance is going to be the most relevant thing ever. But
Resistances are
yeah,
kind of important in most cases. Cards like Yveltal that resist
fighting. Yeah.
The fighting could completely shut out decks that would shred.
Yeah, like Lucario, bats couldn't do much damage. But personally, if this came out, I would buy this immediately, because I love non-EX. These are all non-EX decks, but I love super aggressive non-EX decks. I'm currently playing Vespiquen. I have Gyarados built. I love Gyarados too, but I love Vespiquen even more. I have almost done Night March. I'm just down a Pumpkaboo. I don't know where it went. So I'll have Night March. I love super aggressive non-EX decks, and this is something I could get behind playing. Because
Yeah,
you do
there's
have to.
something about being super or overly aggressive in some cases. It makes you feel really powerful until you get shut down.
Yeah, and I think a lot of kids could gravitate towards this, thinking, well, look at these massive combos, and if you just put on the on the sides and back of the box or even the front that this is a combo deck, I think if Pokemon actually advertised what kind of deck they were sending out, well, none of the Steam decks now have any type of strategy to them, but if the deck strategy is all out attack, like Excadrill or Trevenant Garbodor or Golduck or Passimian, if it's all out attack, it would have a little attack symbol on it. And if it were more defensive, like Oricorio,
Nice big fat shield.
yeah, a nice big shield on it. So you knew this is a defensive deck. And if you play a defensive deck and you don't like it, well, you'll buy offensive decks from then on. And it kind of would make things sell better, because if your kid really likes offense decks, he'll probably buy the new offense decks when they come out. So if you really liked Passimian, you'll probably like Excadrill. Well, it's a very different style of deck. But you get what I'm saying. It translates from one to the other because they play very similarly in the way that they're hyper aggressive. And I think that if a kid knows what they're buying and knows how they're going to play it, or even if it tells you how you're going to play the deck, I still think it's more fun than having a deck that doesn't actually do anything. Because really, what did Mewtwo Mayhem do? I'm just going to keep ripping on that deck because it's awful.
Just sat there in the box.
Yeah. It was evolution, so box evolution doesn't mean anything, though. It's evolutions, so no one cares.
It made you feel like you got a really nice card, and then you look at the paper, and it's actually just garbage.
Yeah. But I tried to make this really consistent. You have your 4 nest balls. So you get your Rayquazas, your Drillburs, and your Delmise. You also have your 4 Evo Sodas to evolve your Drillbur into Excadrill, because you really don't want to be using your Ultra Balls on them. You want to be using your Ultra Balls for Rayquaza and Delmise. Shield just to try and live a hit every so often. Float Stones for your Delmise. And Double Colorless Claw and for Turbo Storm. So it's just, if you can Turbo Storm the early game a couple times, then not every deck can 2 or 3. Especially if you're going second and you can lead with Rayquaza, then not a lot of decks on their second turn can first or whatnot. Not a lot of decks can hit 120 on their first turn attacking. So especially some of the newer decks, these stage 2s, the Decidueye can't really hit. Gardevoir can't hit 120 turn 2. Well, I mean, it can, I guess. All it needs is 2 fairies, but that's if they actually get into a Gardevoir. So to get off a couple Turbo Storms and power up a couple Excadrills just from your Rayquaza, and then from there you can just, when you have an Excadrill powered up active, and maybe probably an Excadrill on your bench powered up, you can start powering up your other Excadrills throughout the field. And I just really think that this deck would be a lot of fun to play because it has a linear strategy to it. You're really just trying to make the world's strongest Excadrill, and then be able to hit twice with it. And really, if you can take multiple prizes in a turn, or multiple knockouts in a turn, that would be super duper fun. Because if I'm playing against something like Mew, I can just Mach Claw, and I'm good. Or if I'm playing I can Mach Claw, hit for 90 another turn, so knock out 2 Golducks in a turn, or knock out a Golduck and a Starmie in a turn. I think that would be really fun. I think that's something that a lot of kids would enjoy playing. And our last Guardians Rising deck, which is obviously another meme deck, is Whiscash. So I tried to make it consistent, and I sort of went off the Mallow engine and the gimmick, where you have your unknowns, or you Mallow cards at the top of the deck and unknown them, but you also Mallow energy to the top of the deck, so you can landslip for at least 200 every turn. So I mean, you're 130 HP stage 1, which I guess isn't bad at all. So you just attach a strong and a fighting and a double colorless, and then you Mallow some more fighting energy back to the top, and then you discard them, and then you use your energy recyclers to put them back, and then you Mallow them back to the top of the deck, and then you do it again. And it's linear, but hitting for 200 damage every single turn is probably pretty fun. And I don't know, at least Paul, if you were a 4th grader and every single turn of the game you were hitting for 200 damage, I think that'd be pretty fun, right?
I'd feel like a god.
Yeah.
Being able to one tap all these other decks would be amazing.
Yeah, especially like if your friend comes in with this brand new GX, this massive drop.
Super fancy.
I was gonna say drop, but we kill that anyway. This massive Lapras, and you're just like mallow landslip, and you just trash their Lapras.
Oops.
Then again, that involves getting 4 energies on a 130 HP Whiscash. But still, I think there's a lot of kids that would like this, and I think there would probably need to be a separate symbol for like a slow deck. So like I think it would be speed, defense, and some type of offense. So, like offense would be like Excadrill, and speed would be Excadrill Passimian.
Like a gust of wind for speed.
Yeah, I guess. Or like an axe, a shield, and like a dagger, or like a knife, except make it,
super cartoony.
Yeah, don't make it weapons in the first place, because Aegis Slash is getting a little too much already.
Yeah, or maybe just use Aegis Slash itself. Just put it in its different forms on the side of the box.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. So there's a sign for like Whiscash and Gigalith saying this is a slow deck, but it does a lot of damage. And there's a sign like on Passimian and Excadrill say this is a fast deck, but it doesn't do as much damage. And there's a sign in front of Oricorio and like Golisopod saying this is a really slow deck. It doesn't do damage really. It just disrupts your opponents. Or like it has a stop sign on it because it basically stops them from playing Pokemon. And I think that would be really cool, and it would make the theme deck something worth looking at instead of just seeing them on the shelf and immediately bypassing them to look at packs and promo boxes.
Yeah, for me, I'd go walk in stores like Target and GameStop, stuff like that. Nice Pokemon sections. I see the theme decks, I just kind of gag at the new ones and just continue to buy the packs.
But if you saw something like this, which would obviously be called the Rule of Evil theme deck.
Oh, no.
I would buy this. I mean, Weavile's there. So it's another gimmick deck. It's a spread deck. But you have your Force Sneasel full of eviling everything because a lot of Pokemon, even in these, have abilities like Starmie, like Mew. You over and over and over, and then initialize with your Porygon Z. So you sort of do the math, count. Okay, is there at least 80 Pokemon in a bunch of these stage 1s and stage 2s? If there is, well, now I Rule of Evil. My Porygon 2 into Porygon Z, and then devolve, take a whole bunch of prizes, and wipe their board clean. Which, it's a little bit of a slow deck, because you need to set up your Weavile, you need to set up your Porygons. If you're playing in something that doesn't have abilities like Wisp, like playing in some of that abilities, you're not winning the game. It's a gimmick deck. But if you're playing in something like Passimian, like a Rangaroos, you can take prizes on a Rangaroos, I guess. Use Spirit Tomb, the Steam Sea Spirit Tomb, which lets you just move damage counters around on your opponent's bench. So you just take a whole bunch of prizes by taking all of those, like even if they're playing with like fancy new GXs and Decidueye, and you've been hidden a bunch of times, but they have that one lone, Lele on the bench. You probably would have killed the Lele, but you can just use the damage play attack on the Spirit Tomb, move all the damage counters to the Lele. I guess you could just do it once and then kill a Lele with it, or just move everything onto your Decidueye and kill a Decidueye. I think this would be a fun deck, and I think it's a different style of deck. It's a rush down deck where you're applying a lot of pressure early, and it has a gimmick to it. But I think if a person or a kid looks at this and says, and reads the back of the box, you can say it in 2 sentences, use Rule of Evil, and then devolve your opponents with Porygon Z. Or devolve your opponents to show their weaknesses or something like that on the back. They would know, okay, I Rule of Evil and then I initialize. Or you initialize first if you're playing against like Espeon GX. You only have your theme deck and your friends go sitting there playing Espeon Garbodor. And you're just like, nah, man, I'll just initialize first, turn all those Flareons and whatnots into EVs, and then hit them with Rule of Evil and take 3 prizes in turn. I think that This would be a fun deck. I think a lot of people would like it. And I think even if you're not going to play it by itself, it's a cool archetype. You just add some Tapu Kokos, it gets exponentially better. So I think this is something that people would like. And it doesn't have 20 energy. It actually only has 7 energy. Trainers, because if you buy one of these,
how to manage their energy properly.
It's how to manage damage properly, and how, and even if you're playing against this deck, it teaches you, well, I have to play my like some decks, like Gold deck, need their Pokemon with abilities. You need Starmie most turns, but you don't need Octillery. Octillery down, because if I do, then he hits it with Rule of Evil, and then uses Initialize, and it's down for the count. But if I don't bench Octillery and only Starmie, well, I only bench Starmie as late as possible. That means he gets a less Rule of Evils, and I just try and go through all my energy first. Because really, what the idea would be, because I can't hit your Bulldogs, is just to make it so you don't run out of energy. So you try and go as long as you can. And I think not treating players like they're stupid and letting them figure that out by themselves. People will figure out, even if you're a little 4th grader, down, because the deck says, because the box says, put down Starmie and use Starmie to get my energy back. And then your Starmie gets KO'd the next turn from Rule of Evil Initialize. I think you'd learn.
Mm-hmm.
You'd learn, oh, I can't put down my Starmie anymore because he'll Rule of Evil me, but then you'll run out of energy that game. And if you play against that friend again, you'll get Rule of Evil if you put down early, but if you don't put it down early, then he can't do anything for a while, so you'll have to like attach 3 energy to Porygon with spam Zap Cannon, which doesn't even kill you. Well, I mean, if they have Potown down, then you'd be at 60 HP. Or they could just slash you to death, which does 70 damage, which also works. Probably better. Just attach 2 darks and you slash. But the same thing applies. You sort of have to find a way around it, and I think it will make people get better at the game rather than the theme decks now, which don't teach you anything. They just give you a whole bunch of useless Pokemon and like 3 useful ones and say, well, try and find that useful Pokemon, and that's a needle in a haystack. And that's what I don't want. I don't want playing Pokemon to be like a needle in a haystack for people. I want them to be able to buy a deck and have it be playable. I just think that it would make the game more fun for everyone and make it so that everyone can play Pokemon and make it a game for everyone. And if you show up to your league and you're new to the game, well, you're not going to show up with an awful deck as long as you bought a starter deck. And if you bought a starter deck, you'll have the cards. And most people have bought a starter deck, so you'd be able to play it, go to your local league, and have fun rather than buying a starter deck, going to your local league, and not knowing how to build a deck because the starter deck idea doesn't work and your mind is blown. And not knowing how to build a deck and not having a deck to play. So I think these decks would help the community and help the younger audience get bigger and make it so that you don't go to a tournament and have them combine 2 age groups like the last one we went to. They have to combine 2 age groups because nobody really showed up for juniors and seniors. But if more people knew how to play the game competitively, maybe it would have been better. But moving on to the next deck is Kingdra Garbodor, which is just a snipe deck really at this point. You just Tornado Shot and discard energy, and then you brine things on the bench once they get enough damage. So if you're playing, I'm going to beat on Passimian again, or no, I'll just beat on Mewtwo again. Playing against that friend playing Mewtwo Mayhem. And they just bench a Mewtwo down. You're like, oh, well, Tornado Shot, you're active, whatever it is, because it probably has less than 90 HP, because nothing actually evolves in that deck. So like if they put up that Haunter, because they don't have a Gengar, you Tornado Shot it, well, you kill that and you put 30 onto their Mewtwo on the bench. And then you hit in something else, even they put up the Nidoking, you brine whatever's on the bench, the Mewtwo, if you had just hit into that, and wow, that Mewtwo's gone. And I think it would really teach kids some sort of strategy. And while you're doing this is a little bit of a slow setup, so you could play Garbodor. And you can definitely work off of that, and kids learn, well, my opponents might need their abilities, so I play down Garbodor. But then I'm going to need to discard a lot of things, because you already have the discard energy from Tornado Shot. So if I see that they aren't playing any Pokemon with abilities, I just don't play the Garbodor and I discard it. And it teaches kids resource management. They're going to need the Garbodor sometimes, and sometimes they're going to run out of things to discard, and they're going to want to discard the Garbo, or if they played it when they didn't need to, then so much worse of a spot for them. But really, for me, the highlight of the deck is the consistency, because it's 4/2/4, and there's 4 Ultra, 3 Nest, 2 Timer, 4 Candy. Also, the Max Potions, same thing as the Dragonite deck. You're getting your Pokemon back with Splash Energy, so if you have a Seadra on the bench and a Kingdra just got knocked out, you splash. It has Splash on it. If you just use Brine, and then you just put the the Kingdra onto the Seadra and bench the Horsey that was underneath the Kingdra, and then you're ready to go. The Hoopa, I think, is a really nice inclusion. And again, Hoopa and Garbodor are from Steam Siege and effectively, but Kingdra's from not Guardians Rising, Burning Shadows. And this is a Burning Shadows theme deck. So I think if your main attacker is from the set, I think that should count, and that would make everything better. Because sets don't really come out with enough good cards to be able to play just that set. And even blocks, like our Sun and Moon block, we have supporters. Can you remember off the top of your head that we have in our Sun and Moon block? And this is counting the bad ones.
Yeah, not at all.
This is Kukui, Hao, Wick, Lily, and Ilima. And the trial captain, the first one, Hala. So that's 6. Well, Hala only works if you use your GX attack. If you're not playing a GX deck, then you can't use that. Lily's not good past the first turn of the game. Hao's just bad. Ilima can end up with you getting 3 and your opponent getting 6. Kukui's for damage. And then Wick doesn't actually net you any cards. You just actually end up with 1 card less than you had the turn before. So tell me how any of those are remotely useful. I guess you could run Wick, and you could run like Ilima and stuff, but
they aren't really that useful for anything
They're
outside of higher tier game and gameplay.
Yeah. Like Ilima's, I mean, it was good when Quad Lapras was a thing, because it was a good tech against Quad Lapras. And Wick can be good, like if you pick the perfect scenario, like you just big wheeled 7-card hand. Well, if you play the Wick, you're going to shuffle draw 10. So if you big wheeled 10 awful cards, you get 10. If your given your deck's giving you 10 awful cards off a big wheel, you're probably going to Wick for 10 more awful cards. In situations like that, Algorithm GX it can work with. If you had if you Sycamore, then Algorithm, you're going to have 12 cards. You have 12 more cards. So in very specific scenarios, it would be really useful, but there's not much there, and I think that's why you need older cards in these theme decks in order to make them viable, because there's not enough good Pokemon in the set to make every single Pokemon in the deck, well, for the most part. There's not enough good Pokemon in the set to make every single card in the deck a non-EX good Pokemon. The Kingdra is barely good. So that's why I think they need to reach back into the X and Y sets and really just keep everything in standard. These Burning Shadows decks are post-rotation, because they probably, by the time Burning Shadows came out and they had the pre-releases, the promotional decks, the theme decks out, they probably knew what rotation was going to be. So they probably just shouldn't include those cards. But they should include cards from Breakpoint and Breakthrough, because those decks those cards make the decks more effective. And giving kids 4 Sycamore, 4 N, 4 Guzma lets them actually find cards that they want. Because if you're playing Hidden Moon and you're drawing that Gotharita and that Lampent every turn, you're not very happy. You're happy when you get that massive Lunala knockout.
And there's decks like this that come with the EXs that make little kids feel good too.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think we're talking regular theme decks. I don't think regular theme decks will include GXs.
Yeah, sadly.
So I mean, it would be cool if they included like 1 GX in every single one. So like
not necessarily something god tier.
Yeah. So like the Trevenant Garbodor, throw a Gumshoe line in it, and throw a Tauros into Passimian, and I don't know, throw Like in here, in this deck, you throw a Tapu Fini in because it's a snipe deck and it's water. So you throw Tapu Fini GX in, and it's a snipe. It snipes for 120 damage, and it's water, and it works perfectly. Given this is only this is only 1 energy, and Tapu Fini is 3 energies, but it would go with the general theme of the deck, and I think that would have been appreciated. But they haven't done that. They made it an Alolan Ninetales and a Lycanroc theme deck, and those didn't have the GXs. They made the Solgaleo Lunala, those didn't have the GXs, and they made the Alolan starters, and those didn't have the GXs. So like every single Pokemon they made a theme deck of has had a GX, but the GX wasn't in the theme deck. And I don't think that they're going to put one in now. So on to the next deck, Dusknoir Zoroark. This is basically just the Mind Jack deck. And I think this would be really fun. So the point of this deck really is your early game, you're just attacking with Zoroark, and you have your Dusknoirs too. So you early game attack with Zoroark, Mind Jack a bunch, and then when you get your Dusknoir out, you can also Mind Jack because he does slightly more damage. But for the most part, you're going to use Dark Invitation. So you use Dark Invitation, look at their hand. If they have a Pokemon, then you can bench it with 3 damage counters. And if they have more Pokemon, then you use Pokepuffs to put more Pokemon down for Mind Jack. And if they have energy, then you play a Skull Grunt, and you really just try to neuter their hand. Am I allowed to use the word neuter? Maybe. I think so. This is PC, right? Yeah. Neuter's PC. It's scientific. I also decided to include the 4 Rainbow Energy. And this is another example of a deck. You could run Drampa in it. But it's a GX. I'm not throwing GXs in. But I ran the Rainbow Energy so you could use Zoroark Break because that's a nice gimmicky card and it's really good sometimes. And then you also need the Psychic Energy on Dusknoir's Mind Jack. Since I had 2 Psychics in here beforehand, but I think just putting on the box, hey, don't discard your energy. You'll really need it later. Or just probably could have thrown a special charge in here. But it's a gimmicky deck, but it has a point to it. It has a combo. It has a main combo that you're trying to get out. And that main combo is Dark Invitation, Pokepuff, and then load up their bench. And then you're doing 2 things. You're looking at their hand and loading up their bench. So when you load up the bench, you do more damage. When you look at their hand, you're allowed to you can disrupt them and make it so they have to go slower. And I really think that that's something a lot of kids would like, a hyper offensive deck. And it's sort of like a speed deck, but you kind of get to look at your opponent and be like, are you going to bench the Pokemon? Are you going to put down an extra Rowlet, sir? And if they don't put down the extra Rowlet, well, you just put down for them. So they either hinder their own setup or you do a lot of damage. Well, that's how Zoroark normally goes. But with Dusknoir, if they hinder their own setup, well, you just put the Pokemon down anyway, so you're making them go all in, and you're making them give you more damage. So I think, personally, that I think this deck would work really well, and it would also sell really well, because Dusknoir and Zoroark just look awesome.
Yeah, I was just about to make a comment on that. They're such great-looking Pokemon.
Yeah, also the card art's really nice.
Yeah, card art comes into a big factor for a lot of little kids.
Also the Mind Jack theme deck. Just call it the Mind Jack theme deck. Also Duskull has a good attack and his art has him dabbing, so makes it even better.
Dab on the haters.
Yeah, but what if the haters dab back? Okay. So I guess credit to I had this actually as like Eradicate Salazzle, and then I watched a video by PGCG Radio, so I guess shout out to him, and he showed me the side of EVs. So I was going to go like Disruption and EVs, but I think that's too much for a young kid to handle. But it's more like put a tool on Eradicate and then put a reverse valley down. And then so if you're hitting into your friend who bought all those packs and got that sick GX, then, well, you're hitting for 90, 100 with reverse valley. And if they bought that brand new Turtonator GX, well, you just put down your Vaporeon, because you have 2 EVs and one of each of the evolutions from Ancient Origins, which are rotating. So I guess rip post rotation, but I think it was just too cool to pass up. So everything else is post-rotation except for those 3 evolutions. And there you're one-shotting a Turtonator. And I think that would be really fun for no energy. Like the concept of knocking things out for no energy, I think would be so cool, right? Like look at all your friends waiting turns to attach energy to their Pokemon. And then you just stand...
Especially when it's a deck like Lunala or Yveltal that you're going up against, which require that large chunk of energy.
Yeah, and you can just say, I'm attacking for no energy. How do you feel about that, little Timmy? And then as you go in, one-shot little Timmy's Turtonator GX. With the Choice Band and 4 energy from a fresh Kiawe. Because you got that 2-copy Wolf Wally. So you secretly run the Magnezone from that Plasma set, whichever one it was, that lets you play 2 supporters. And you double Wally for your Vaporeon and your Raticate, and on your first turn, you knock out the Turtonator that Kiawe 4 energy too. Because if you couldn't see, I secretly teched in that Magnezone. I didn't actually. And this is the last deck, and I didn't really want to put this deck here, but get Ross from PTCG Radio, so shout out to him. He'd actually make a list for this deck, but he talked about it a lot, and I think that it would make a really nice theme deck. Because it sort of is gimmicky, but 1 energy for 80 damage on the stage 1 with 140 HP is pretty good. So this would be sort of like a speed deck, I guess, where you're just hitting 180 every turn, but whoa, you have strong energy, so that's 100 damage every single turn. And then whoa, you have Choice Band, so that's 130 damage every turn. But if you're not hitting against a GX, you can use Muscle Dumbbells, which puts you up to 180 HP on a non-GX.
Feels good, man.
Yeah, and also Muscle Dumbbells means you can Gutsy Hammer without having to heal every single turn, because if you get hit, you basically have 70 HP, because otherwise you kill yourself with Gutsy Hammer. But if you have the Muscle Dumbbells, then you basically have 90 HP, so you can take 90 damage before having to heal with Crabominable, and you have the 4 max potions in there too. Your 4 Nest, your 4 Ultra, your 4 Timers, because this is post rotation, so you have your 3 Brookwood Hills too, to be able to, so that you can find literally every single Crab Brawler you have on your first turn of the game, and then turn 2 have every single Crabominable out. What happened? Your mic just died. So I think this would be fun. Just set up Crabominables and Smash and hope they don't die. I think that would be a fun archetype. Also, an Abominable Snowman Crab would probably be fun for a lot of kids.
Yeah, there's something with the name that has a really nice ring to it.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? So we're going to go set by set. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, so it's going to look awful. But just going to flash through all of them. And we're going to start with Sun and Moon. So with Sun and Moon, I'm going to ask you which one's your favorite. So we have Passimian Mew, Golduck Starmie, Dragonite Muck, Sharpedo Hare, and Magma's Gigalith. So first one, which one is your favorite? Like, which one would you be looking through? Like, if they had all 5 of them out at a target, which one would you be like, Mommy, buy me this?
Either Magma's Gigalith or Sharpedo Hare.
So the meme decks.
Yes.
Okay. I'd probably go Dragonite Muck, because I like dragons, and I like Ability Lock, and I like healing, so I'd go Dragonite Muck. But the second question is, which one of these decks do you think is actually the best? And I think there is a clear answer here. I think that answer would probably be... I'm going to go first. I think it's Passimian. I think Passimian's the only actual deck here, because it's just so fast and can actually hit for 140 damage. And then you're hitting Drampa for your weakness. You're hitting Darkrai for weakness. You're hitting Garb. You're hitting Espeon. You're hitting Mega Mewtwo if that comes back. You're hitting all those for weakness with Mew. And you can also draw with a Ringaroo, and you're really fast and you're really consistent. So I think that's the best one. But which out of the Sun and Moon do you think is the best deck? So you have, again, Passimian Mew, Golduck Starmie, Dragonite Muck, Sharpedo Hare, and Magma's Gigalith.
I don't have much experience with Passimian Mew, so I'd probably go with Magma's Gigalith, because I played with the camera up for a while.
Yeah. I mean, this was an old deck with Camera Up DX, so you'd use the Magma's Camera Up to put a whole bunch of energy on. And Camera Up DX has the same attack as Gigalith, but with fire energy. But now you could use double Magma energy, which counts as 2 fighting, so that's 100 damage. You can attach every single turn from your hand, so you just keep the 2 energy on the Gigalith, and you just kind of pray that your Gigalith doesn't get knocked out. Okay. So on to Guardians Rising. So Guardians Rising, we have Trevenant Garbodor, which is Psychic Grass, Glyphopod Vileplume, Full Grass, Oricorio Mill, Fire and Colorless, Excadrill Delmise, which is Metal Psychic, and Wishcash, which is just straight fighting, because we don't care about unknowns. So which one is your favorite? Would you say, mommy, buy this for me?
I already can't remember the name of it.
So we have Wishcash, Excadrill Delmise, Oricorio Mill, the biggest meme of all time, Glyphopod Vileplume, or Trevenant Garb.
I'd probably go with Trevenant Garb or Oricorio Mill.
Oricorio, sorry, do you mean Oricorio meme?
Yes, Oricorio meme.
I honestly think Trevenant Garb would probably sell the best. Just the rest of these cards don't look super cool. I'd say Glyphopod Vileplume would probably sell pretty well too, because I know a couple people playing Glyphopod at least. Yeah. But definitely, I'd probably, I think that would sell the best. I'd personally play Oricorio meme. I just think it's the best. I think it's just so good, and I actually think this deck's fun. Or Excadrill Delmise, because I also like Excadrill Delmise. But the best one, I think the best one competitively is Trevenant Garbodor.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So on to Burning Shadows. So we have Spread.Deck, Weavile Porygon, which is dark and colorless, Kingdra Garbodor, which is water and psychic, Dusknoir Zoroark, which is psychic and dark, Alolan Eradicate Eevees, which is dark and colorless, just because Eevee is colorless and I didn't want to put down fire, water, lightning. And lastly, Crabominable. So which one would you most buy? Which one would you most want to play and be like, mommy, buy me this?
I mean, I want to be that one edgy kid that somehow makes his way to victory, so I'd probably buy the Zoroark Dusknoir.
Okay. Different question. Which one do you think would sell the best? I think that's probably the same answer, though.
Yeah, that or Weavile.
Yeah, Weavile is pretty popular. Weavile is one of my favorite Pokemon, actually. Me, being a chubby kid, dressed up as a Weavile for Halloween one year.
Oh.
It was like Gen 4 Weavile, if you look at the sprite for that. It's really slim, and then Gen 6 Weavile is a little chubby, and that's how I looked as Gen 6 Weavile. But personally, for me, I love Weavile. I really don't love any of these decks, personally. Not much I play. I like Kingdra, because I like Darkrai EX and Umbreon, so I'd either play Kingdra or Weavile. I'm not sure, but probably Weavile. And I think the best deck here, none of these are that good. I think it'd probably be Weavile. I think the one that'd sell the best is Dusknoir. So overall, Paul, which one do you think is the best deck? So we have same 3 questions: which would sell the best, which is the best, and which is your favorite. For Crabominable, so these are the decks: Crabominable, Burning Shadows, Alolan Eradicate Eevees, Dusknoir Zoroark, Kingdra Garbodor, and Weavile Porygon Z, all from Burning Shadows. Whiscash, Excadrill Delmise, Oricorio Mill, Glyphopod Vileplume, and Trevenant Garb, all from Guardians Rising. And Magma's Gigalith, Sharpedo Hair, Dragonite Muck, Golduck Starmie, pretend there's an R there, and Passimian Mew, all from Sun and Moon. So which one do you think which is your favorite? Let's just start with that.
Favorite-wise, I'd probably go with the Dusknoir and Zoroark build.
Okay, any particular reason for that?
Not really.
They just look cool.
Dusknoir was one of my favorite Pokemon for a really long time. What's the name of that one game?
Platinum?
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Oh, dude, Mystery Dungeon. Okay, that's a topic for another. That's a whole different topic. Look forward to that one coming up.
That had a special place in my heart, and Dusknoir made its way into one of my favorite Pokemon because of that game.
Yeah. Also, Zorwork's good. It's just a good card. It's fun. I played in my Vespiquen deck. I might cut it out of my Vespiquen deck, but currently it is in my Vespiquen deck, and I think Zorwork break copying other people's attacks could also be really fun. And you have two different attackers with 140 HP on the Zorwork break and 150 HP on Dusknoir. So I think that's definitely really, really strong. Personally, for me, I think my favorite deck is Oricorio Mill, Oricorio Meme. It's so fun. Like you haven't played this, but this is currently my only active deck on PTCGO is Oricorio Meme.
I'll have to play against it then.
This is kind of similar to the list I run, except for I run a couple Houndooms and a couple less Bunnelbees. I run 3 Bunnelbee, 3 Houndoom. And I dock down a couple of these supporters. I run 4 VS Seekers and less Energy Lotto. I don't run Energy Lotto, and that's where my 3 Houndooms come from. But I really like this deck, and it is so much fun. And it's dirt cheap. Like, this is... You could give some kid your lunch money, and he could give you back Oricorio Bunnelbee, and he probably still got scammed. Like, it's pretty cheap.
Pokemon would make a lot of money if that sold for $15.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't cost that much though to print Gardevoirs. I mean, really, it doesn't cost that much. I like Gardevoirs, but it's just, I think being able to Passionate Dance turn 1 for all of your Oricorios means all your other search cards go exclusively for Bunnelbee, so you're finding all of your Bunnelbees. So turn 3, you have all your Pokemon searched out, Fighting Fury Belts on all of them, so you never have to miss a target with Fighting Fury Belt. So you have 100 HP Bunnelbees and 130 HP Oricorios, hitting for 40 damage. That's really not the point. It's just guarding the energies. Yeah, one-shot those Rowlets and Wimpods. I actually did that once. I was so proud of myself. I got a one-shot on a Wimpod. I did it. It's like 2 weeks ago. Not 2 weeks ago. 2 days ago. It was the first day Guardians Rising was legal, and then someone was playing Glisspod GX, and I just kindled their... I lost the game still, but I kindled their Wimpod with the Fighting Fury Belt, and they died.
Fighting Fury Belt is just one of those cards that's just going to keep getting reprinted over.
I really don't think it will. Because they're going towards a evolution format, but again, that's a topic for another day. Today's topic is Steam decks and why they're so bad and how they could be better. And most of the time, we're talking about how they could be better and why these 15 are all better than anything they've ever printed. But which one do you think is the best? Like the best competitively, like the most competitively viable? Yeah, I think there's only like 2 options.
Yeah, Psimian Mew and maybe Dragonite Muck.
I think you're forgetting one. Maybe one that like actually, I think it got top 30. Yeah, it got top 32 in Seattle.
Nice.
So given Seattle was all Garbodor, but yeah, this deck got top 32 in Seattle. So I think it's the best. I really don't think there's much better than it, honestly. But I'll make my case why I think TrevGarb is the best. So, if your opponent keeps items in their hand, they get poltergeisted. If they put items in the discard, they get trash avalanche. If they keep a low hand size and shuffle their items back in the deck, well, you just silent fear over and over to put all their Pokemon within range. That if you were to poltergeist and they had a low hand size, you could still kill them. Or trash avalanche with very few items, you can still kill them because the silent fear added up really fast. So that's personally my spiel about why TrevGarb. I mean, it's also Garbodor, and Trevenant I just think is a good partner for it. Also, the art on Trevenant is fantastic.
Trevenant always has good art, though.
Yeah, it does. So I think that's why that's the best. But do you want to make an argument for Trevmew or Dragonite or I guess Zorwork? Because you seem to like that one. That one was pretty good.
Zorwork is just really fun to play, but really annoying to play against. It locks out a lot of the key important things that people need in their game.
Yeah, because you don't want to overbench and then get your Drampa knocked out by... I'm just spamming Drampa because everyone uses Drampa at this point. You don't want your Drampa getting knocked out by a one-prize Zorwork and then having to retaliate with the Berserk, and then getting return KO'd by the Zora work. So that's never fun. But so which one do you think is the best? You guys go with me with Trevenant Garb, or are you going to?
I'm gonna make the argument for Simeon Mew.
Okay, let me skip back up to Simeon Mew. So are you just going solely based off of speed?
Yeah, it's a fast deck. It gets damage out really fast as well.
Yeah, it's consistent too. This list is consistent. Doesn't even have Shaman or Waylay or Skyfield, so.
Doesn't need those either.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want one Waylay or one Shaman, but I've played this deck and I've never used a Shaman or Waylay. The only thing I would add to this deck is Choice Band, but this is Sun and Moon format. This is Primal Clash Sun Moon, so there was no Choice Band. That's why this is why there's Buddy Buddy Rescues rather than Rescue Stretchers. So, okay. Last question is, which one do you think would sell the best? You want to refresh on all of them real quick?
Nah.
Okay.
I think Weavile.
Yeah, Weavile's cool.
Maybe Whiscash for some people, because I used to find
dopey.
him really cute.
Yeah, he's pretty dopey.
He seems like one of those Pokemon that you don't expect much from. Like,
I mean, you're not going to
never
expect much
expect
from him
anything.
either, except for when you forget to bring a Grass type to Bertha in the Elite Four, and then you get swept.
You mean me?
Yeah, I mean most kids did that. They forgot to bring the Grass type.
See, I picked Turtwig too. I just left him in the PC.
Okay, you have to start in the PC. Okay, Paul, we're gonna have to talk after this video. But so yeah, I could see Whiscash selling well just because he's cute and dopey, and Weavile because he looks really cool, and there's a lot of people who love Porygon, including me. Most more nerdy kids like Porygon.
Yeah, there's people who play Pokemon Go too who just find Pokemon, like Porygon, rather really, really great because he's rare in there too.
Yeah,
he's rare in the games. He's.
I don't know. Not everyone may remember this, but having to go to the game corner.
Oh,
and then grind for that Porygon.
Don't even remind me.
I was too good at game corner. I sat there, went to the Elite Four with a pack of Porygons. Man, I felt suave. Also, I mean, they were Porygon 2s.
It's a shame.
No, it was just Porygon. It was just Porygon actually, because I didn't have any friends, so I couldn't trade. But see, I could see Weavile selling well, especially if they put that really nice and not Google Docs font on the box.
Yes, I agree.
But it's kind of hard. I think Excadrill Delmise could sell really well, and I think like Trevenant Garb. After seeing how well Garb does in tournament, I think a lot of mid-level players would buy Trevenant Garb. So I think that one would sell really well. Also, it comes with a break. So I think that's important. It's also like $1 break, but it comes with a break. So
yeah,
I think that's relevant.
It's just really flashy. Anything that comes with an EX or a break will probably sell much better.
Yeah. So that also the more popular decks, the other one I was going to say also comes with a break, and that is Dusknoir Zoroark. Comes with 2 Zoroark breaks, which are fairly expensive cards actually.
Very versatile cards.
Yeah. So that is it. Paul, do you have anything more you want to say?
Don't buy a deep deck.
Yeah, I mean, look at this Hidden Moon though. Look how good that is. The Beware draw engine.
It's got my favorite Pokemon, and I'm happy.
Lunala?
Yeah.
I mean,
look
at Shiinotic though. Best search engine in the game. You're one of Shiinotic. We'll find everything you ever need. Yeah, don't buy those. I mean, none of the stuff we spent the majority talking about is real. That's stuff that I wrote out and then didn't show Paul until now, so we can sort of have a blind reaction sort of thing. Except Paul's like the least hype person you'll ever meet. He doesn't really get hype. He's just like, oh, that's cool. I like it.
Pretty much. The only thing
but buy this.
hyped over is Overwatch.
Yeah. So buy this, buy Rayquaza box, and buy the Keldeo one that comes with it. I guess one box, and the black and white Curums. Buy that.
Maybe we'll end
That
up
an arena
looking
deck.
at, what's it called? Print.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I got a discoloration print of
There we
Keldeo.
go. That's the word.
And if you really like one of the legendary birds, or like Ho-Oh and Lugia, the legendary duck, or the legendary fish, because they refuse to accept that Lugia is not a fish. If you really like those, buy a legendary battle deck. Those are pretty good. Whatever you do, don't buy these. And also don't buy anything from Evolutions, guys. So this has been Smash Inker's first TCG video. You got Declan and Paul talking about Pokemon, and you might hear this again unless the channel mod, Tyler, cough cough, yells at me about putting Pokemon stuff on the channel. So
We'll just have its own separate playlist.
yeah.
No announcements. It's just there.
So if you guys want to see us build any of these decks, they're like
Try them out.
$10 each. So Paul, we're not that broke. We could test them out. If we get 10 likes on this video, guys, that's all we need is 10 likes. Top comment on what we should build. We'll build it and we'll play it best of 5, and we'll record it and we'll put it up on the channel if you guys actually care, but you guys don't. So that's not going to happen unless suddenly we become remotely popular.